Zidane Danny, Electro Ninja here, and welcome back to Electro Ninja's Lab. So, for the first video of this week, I would like to bring up a video, or a review. You may have noticed that this video is not in the Show It Some Love section, or playlist. And it's also not called Show Raising Dion Some Love, but rather just Raising Dion Review. Now, there are going to be a few spoilers, mostly because it's really hard to talk about this without giving away some stuff. I'm going to try and do as few spoilers as I can, but there will still be some. So, basically, I will be giving away a twist, but I'm not necessarily going to be telling you what exactly it is. You'll see what I mean. Everyone out that wants to be out, cool. Raising Dion. Honestly, this is an interesting show. I mean, take it from a guy who watched the entire show, I believe on the first day that I started watching it. So, it was good enough for me to actually sit through it all. But there's some problems with it. And there's some pretty major problems. Now, first and foremost, we have to understand what this show is. It is a superhero show. That is its primary objective. It is about a kid who is young and becoming a superhero. It is reminiscent of great shows like the original Ben 10 and Danny Phantom. And that's really the only ones that can actually be really well described as being close to it. But there are a lot of problems with it. The show is pretty good, especially considering the fact that it is specifically about a younger kid. And it actually does help to basically say, yes, kids nowadays are way more mature than they were, well, when I was a kid. And even younger. Kids nowadays are actually some of the smartest kids that you'll actually meet nowadays, which is honestly surprising. But there are some big hitters. One issue is that for being as mature as it is, it does tackle a topic that is not the best. It's not the best way that they could have gone about it. They take an entire episode to focus on racism, pointing it out, being super obvious about it, which honestly, it's fine to at least make sure people are aware of something, but if you spend an entire episode without really trying to say the word, then that's going to cause a problem. The simple fact of the matter is that, yes, racism exists nowadays, and even though I honestly do believe that it is getting better, especially thanks to YouTube, this was not the right way to go about trying to fix it. By pointing it out the entire time and being being a jerk about the way that they presented it, it wasn't the best option. They could have done it a lot better, and that's mostly my opinion, but honestly, it's weird because you don't really think about it. Like, oh, we all just think at first, oh, the teacher's just a dick, and should honestly probably be fired. But then it comes back and it's like, oh, he's racist. Yeah, he should probably have been fired like years ago if he's gonna act like that because of race. And yeah, it's not a good time. It's really not. Um, and when it's a bad time. Um, so that's one episode. So one episode doesn't necessarily make an entire show bad. The real problem actually doesn't come until later. Throughout the entire show, we have three main characters, of course. Those being Dion, his mother, and his godfather. All of these characters, uh, and a lot of the other characters that get introduced as well, including another powered woman, a um, and I think that was actually and a few other people actually do care about Dion. Even people that you would think, oh, they're the bad guys, they're not necessarily bad guys. They're just kind of not quite the right people, and that's the thing. But then something happens. Shortly after, eventually, Dion's godfather starts acting weird. So, and yeah, this is actually going to be a bit more spoilery than I thought it was. But he starts just having headaches, and it's fine. It's just, oh, probably just some migraine. It's actually pretty average for an adult person to be getting migraines every now and again, especially if they have a history of them, which Dion's mom is not reacting very much to, which hints that it's an average migraine. And then they decide, nope, that's not the case. He's a villain now. What? 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 Who thought of this? The simple fact of the matter is that he happens to be a super as well, and gained abilities as well. But he happened to be in a slightly different area and got badly affected by it, so that now he basically thinks that he has to feed off of other powered people, which he starts, which means that he was the one who killed Dion's father, and so on and so forth. And it's really freaking stupid, because throughout the entire thing, he is acting completely normal. There is no reason for him to turn out to be bad, but it appears that he was bad the entire time. Yeah. Yeah. There is like a little bit here and there that's like, oh, I've met his girlfriends, I don't want to touch that. And understandably, the way she acts, it's reasonable. Honestly. No big deal. And there's no problem with it. It's not even necessarily weird. I mean, he's obviously a clingy guy. And there are guys like that. And it's not the. And honestly, they need to grow up. I mean, take a look at me. I've grown up. I'm very different from how I was back when I first dated my first girlfriend. So, and I was kind of like him. The simple fact of the matter is that people need to grow up, and sometimes it just takes longer for people. But for him, apparently it doesn't, which turns him into a bad guy, because he got rejected, and now by Dion's mother, and now he's a bad guy, and basically wants to kill Dion. And he's apparently been a bad guy the entire time, because he's been wanting to gather up all of these powered people and use them as his life force. What? What even is going on here? And yeah, that's just the start of it. And honestly, it doesn't make any sense. If you guys do watch the show, you'll understand as you watch it that, holy crap, they didn't think this through. Like, at all. Because Dion is just straight up a great kid, and I honestly have no words at all for what the heck is going on here. I mean, I assume that eventually we're going to find out, oh, yeah, he actually wasn't bad, and blah, 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 but I don't know. We'll see. We'll honestly just have to wait and see if they actually do redeem him. But the simple fact of the matter is that it feels like they ripped off Hans from Frozen, who even Hans seems to actually have some reasonable reason. Even though it's kind of out of nowhere, MatPat was able to figure it out, but this thing, there is nothing that is hinting towards it. Here's the simple fact. As a writer, one of our main jobs is to hint to people that something is going to happen. I've talked about my favorite show and my favorite, one of my favorite shows and one of my favorite manga is Promised Neverland multiple times. Kaiyu Shirai does a fantastic job with what we call Chekhov's gun. Basically, something is introduced, later down the line, it's gonna be used. Every single thing has this exact issue. But if you don't even put Chekhov's gun in, then it's a problem. If you don't put the gun up on the shelf, or point it out at least somewhat, you're not going to have a good response from your audience when you do a twist like this. Take another, I think, Prozd, or whatever his name is. Originally he was a Viner. He went into YouTube later on when Vine ended. One of his Vines is a thing that actually references this whole thing. When you're going through the story for the first time and somebody betrays you, you feel like, what the heck? Where did this come from? But then when you go back and rewatch it, you see little hints here and there, and it's just like, oh, shit. Yeah, that was insane. The simple fact of the matter is that as writers, one of our main jobs is actually to look at where we kind of want to go with the story. We honestly have to think a few steps ahead as we're writing our stories. For example, I'm actually writing a character that I'm not 100% certain if I want them to be a villain or just some random person. So I have to be careful with how I write the character right now. The character doesn't really get too much screen time, but they will be showing up. But eventually I decided, oh, yeah, I'll make them a villain. So even if I eventually decide, no, they're not going to be a villain, at least I have the setup there so that people can look and see, oh, yeah, he just changed his mind. There is some evidence that either way could have happened. And that is something that they didn't do with raising Dion. They didn't ever lay the groundwork. Another good example is actually the latest episode of My Hero Academia. In this episode, they actually introduce a villain that's going to be very important for 2 arcs from now. That's not a joke. There is actually a character that was just introduced that is the main villain for the villain arc. Yes, he's not the exact one, but he is extremely important. And most people, honestly, probably won't pick up on it. Unless you happen to be one of those people who is currently at that spot in the manga, which I happen to be. And that is an important thing to realize, that things like this are going to happen. you have to be aware of multiple timelines. And rewatching media is an important thing to actually think about when you're writing your series of any kind. The simple fact of the matter is that if people don't want to rewatch something, then they're not going to. Take my videos, for example. Most of my videos are mostly done to be a one-time view. However, a lot of these theories can be something that you can watch back later and think, haha, he was so stupid back then. And that is part of the whole point in my theory videos. People can look back and think, oh wow, we were really different back then. Holy crap. One of the reasons why I think a lot of people actually like my plot videos. Yes, a lot of my reactions get a lot of views, but the actual fact of the matter is that my reactions aren't going to be getting views down the line. More than likely, my plot videos are actually going to be more likely to be watched again because people are going to think, oh, I should see what this guy thought of this episode before it actually happened, and then I can see, oh, yeah, he was very wrong, but it's still a lot of fun to look back on our thoughts back then. That is part of the whole point. And with this, it's just kind of meh. And it's another thing to actually think about as well. While this is another bad thing, I do actually want to bring up one other bad example of rewatchability not being actually thought of. Rogue One, a fantastic movie, a great movie, has zero rewatchability. The simple facts, it's really hard to write a catastrophe story where everyone dies at the end. And that is what, and honestly, they didn't do that great in in Rogue One. And that's fine. Not having rewatchability is fine, but if it's something like a show, honestly, you gotta really think about that. Especially if it's something that's going to Netflix, which is very much binge country, and when people are searching for something cool to watch, maybe they want to rewatch something fun that they remember watching, they will come across Raising Dion, and they'll look at it and say, oh, yeah, this isn't really something I would want to rewatch. Next, oh, there's Kipo. I want to watch that again because that actually has some rewatchability. That is kind of the important thing to think about here. When you're making something, you have to think not only about when you are making it for the first time, because honestly, tons of people are going to watch things on your first. This is important for any media. Are people going to watch it the first time? Absolutely. When people are going to go through their media and just be like, oh, well, that's cool. Maybe I'll watch that. As they're looking through their subscription feeds. That's probably what brought a lot of you here today. But if it's not something like that, but there's also the issue of the fact that if it's not rewatchable, no one really wants to rewatch it, and then that video basically becomes dead in the water. Take another example from me. Most of my Minecraft videos, they're pretty good at rewatchability because of the fact that I told a story through them. But some of them were not rewatchable because of the fact they were not actually part of the story. And that's basically how things go. We can't necessarily think about it all the time, but it is still an important topic to at least think about when you're writing a script and eventually making a show, or whatever it is. So, yeah. Hopefully this actually helps the people who made Raising Dion, as well as you guys, to actually think more importantly on your media. You may think about it as you're watching this video, nah, rewatching it doesn't really matter. And then 5 seconds later, or not necessarily 5 seconds later, but I guarantee that within a few videos of this, you'll probably be watching something you've already watched, and you're gonna be like, oh, yeah, crap, he was right. So at least think about it. And definitely think about what you're gonna be doing next time. But anyways, guys, let me know what you thought of Racing Dion down in the comments below. Some of you might have liked it, and I'm intrigued to hear if you guys did. Of course, if you have any theories about any shows that I talk about on this channel, then, or really anything I talk about on this channel, make sure to leave them down in the comments below. Of course, if you do have a theory, make sure to use the hashtag theory review so I can talk about it in my next theory review video. But anyways, guys, I've been Electro Ninja, and I'll see you guys next time. But on.